faces.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Rock Sports Showdown. I'm your host, Ryan Noblet, and alongside me are our sensational analysts, Cameron Collins, Kenny Moore, and Big Dave Miller. There's been a lot of action in the sports world over the past week, so let's get started. Rock football traveled to Gannon this past Saturday and suffered a 38-27 defeat. It is the Rock's first loss of the season. Nigel Barksdale threw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, but also threw 2 interceptions. The Rock also lost 2 fumbles in the game. What does this loss mean for the Rock coming into the Hall of Fame game this weekend against Mercyhurst? Kenny?
Honestly, I look at it as a minor setback for the Rock. Going into the game, they hadn't won a game in Erie since 2002 by a score of 17-14 back in 2002, like I said. But, it was a rainy game, a rainy day. It was a tough atmosphere to play in, being in Erie. And like I said, they hadn't lost in, almost 11 years. So going into the game, you kind of had that. They had that on their backs, knowing that, so that's pressure, and then on top of that, the rain, that's more added pressure, so I think it's just a minor setback. Barksdale, didn't play as well as he normally did, throughout the early part of the year, the first 2 games, so it's a minor setback, but I think coming up Mercyhurst, he'll definitely play better. But this past game, it was just turnovers, turnovers and penalties. 19 penalties in one game, it just is unbelievable, So I think they need to cut down the turnovers, and I think they'll get right back on track next week.
For me, this pretty much just reinforces what I've said the past couple of weeks. Once again, the Rock's defense has done a terrible job of stopping the other team. They've given up at least 30 points in every game they've played so far. And so, like Kenny said, when you can't stop the other team and you factor in these turnovers, it's gonna be tough to come out on top in a game like that. We've seen them have an explosive offense, but like I said in past weeks, if they have an off game and their defense can't stop anybody, they're not going to be able to come out on top like we saw this Saturday with Gannon. Hopefully they can turn it around with Mercyhurst, but I still think the big thing that they're going to have to focus on is improving that defense. And if not, it's going to be all on the shoulders of the offense to put up 40-some, 50-some points every game like they did the first couple of games. But I wouldn't rest on them being able to do that every single week. So I definitely think the defense needs to improve for them to have a shot at the PSAC this year.
Defense definitely has to improve. It's inexcusable what they did against Gannon. Granted, the offense, putting up 109 points in your first 2 games, you expect to maybe put up more, even if you are going into a hostile territory. The rain means nothing when you go into another place. It depends on how you just play that entire game. When you have 4 turnovers, it's hard to score over 50 points as well. So that kind of factored in as well. Nigel Barksdale, not as well of a game as he's had. He's gone down 2 touchdowns every game since the home opener. 6, then 2, or 4, then 2, and now possibly 0 going up against Mercyhurst, but I don't think that's going to happen. With it, like Kenny said, minor setback. It could come back to haunt them later, but right now it's a minor setback. I think they're going to go undefeated at home this year. It's just they have to win the games on the road, and this one hurts. You need to be able to win in hostile territory like they did last year against Cal U. So that's why I think with this game, I'll say it again, minor setback. Nigel Barksdale should be fine to go next game. Julian Harrell getting 2 touchdown passes from his only 2 receptions from Nigel Barksdale. So we have one of the tight ends showing up. We have John Schotteman, we have Ken Amos, and we have the slot receivers, LaRoss Stevens Howling, with our running back Shamar Green and Brent Crenshaw. Our offense just needs to show up every week because our defense is actually playing consistently bad, whatever it is, it's fine. The offense needs to show up, and they need to be consistent as well. If that means that's the standard to almost 60 points a game, that's what they have to do. You can't really blame part of the defense for letting the offense not show up that game as well.
Granted, like I said, it's a minor setback. I think the defense does need to step it up because, you had to expect this. Coming into the game, you know, they've been on a tear. You know, like you said, 109 points, you know, in 2 games. You know, you had to know they weren't going to be, you know, as sharp throughout the entire season. You know, at some point the defense had to clamp down and stop teams from scoring points, you know, as many points. I mean, they're not going to shut every team out. You know, so far they haven't come close to shutting a team out. But, I mean, I wouldn't place the loss on the defense. I think 4 turnovers is entirely too much. 2 fumbles and two interceptions. You know, as a quarterback, you know, throwing interceptions is part of the game. You know, it happens. But maybe 1, you know, two is a little too much. And I don't think he's going to do that, you know, throughout the season, you know, a lot. But he definitely needs to you know, work on that. You know, like I said, it's a minor setback, so I feel like he'll get better the next game. So look forward to a good game from him at Mercyhurst.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you guys said, I'm not completely blaming this loss on the defense, but you know, like Dave said, you know, they're playing consistently mediocre defense, giving up 30-plus points every game they play. So, you know, I feel like that's adding an unneeded pressure to the offense. You know, when you come into a game and you understand, hey, to have a shot at this game, we've got to put up 40-plus points. You know, that's the only way we have a chance. You know, most games, 38 points, that's going to be, or, you know, 30-some points, that's going to be enough to win a game. But with the way the Rock's defense has been playing, it's not, because they're giving up 30-plus points every single game. And like you said, the turnovers, but that's what happens when your defense doesn't play well, it magnifies those turnovers. You know, if you have a solid defense where, you know, you turn the ball over a couple times, but you can rely on your defense to maybe stop the other, you know, stop them, hold them to just a field goal or something, you know, those turnovers don't hurt you as bad. But when you have a defense who has a tough time stopping the other team, those turnovers are going to get magnified, and you know you're going to give up more touchdowns that way. Gannon outrushed the Rock by, I think, about 30 to 40 yards. We had a little bit more in the way of passing yards, but like we said, the turnover ratio, you know, we turned the ball over much more than them, the penalties, and just the defense has to improve.
Special teams killed him. Quad Law had a 93-yard kickoff return for Gannon, and there was also another 63-yard return that got them to set up on the Rock 33-yard line for another touchdown. And the 1 turnover was a bad snap to James McCombie. Gannon recovered on the 2-yard line, touchdown 2 plays later. Turnovers killed him. Offense didn't show up. 2-1 now.
All right, and like Kenny said, the Rock did come back down to earth a little bit this week after scoring 109 points in the first 2 games. On to our next topic. The Pittsburgh Steelers are off to an 0-3 start after their season is looking abysmal at this point. After suffering a 40-23 loss at the hands of the Chicago Bears last night, what are your thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers for the rest of the season? Dave?
It's just panic mode at this point. Worst start since 2000, starting out 0-3 that year as well. Steelers fans have been pretty spoiled until this year. With the cutting of Mike Wallace, I still don't think that's a big deal. He wasn't worth as much money as he played the year before, and I thought good riddance. With the first week, having your best offensive lineman go down and having your signal caller go down in the same game, plus another running back that you thought was going to be the starter until Le'Veon Bell came back, that cut you down as well. So what they do, they go back and sign Jonathan Dwyer, they get Fernando Velasco, and they have Keon Butler as one of their draft picks to kind of replace Larry Foote, not as a signal caller, but in the position now. So the defense is the oldest starting unit in the NFL, 29.7 years old, and their offensive line has the least amount of combined starts of any offensive line in the NFL as well. And with Ben always running for his entire life in the NFL, it doesn't make it better with him getting older. It's not the fountain of youth. He's aging quicker and quicker after every year. So with the Steelers, I think it's a blow up of a season. I want to say give up on it, but get the high draft pick. I think maybe 6-10 for the rest of the season. There's really no playoff hope for this team, because when's the last time you heard of an 0-3 team making the playoffs? It's panic mode for the Steelers. They need to find something to build for the future, not right now.
For me, I think I don't necessarily think that their season's over, because it hasn't really been the offense that has been their problem so far. I mean, they put up points against Chicago, they put up points against Cincinnati, but their defense has just been letting them down. Giving up 40 points against Chicago, giving up points in the 30s against Cincinnati. There was a close game with Tennessee in Week 1 against a good Tennessee team who has a good defense. So I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say their season's over. I mean, like you said, playoffs, that's real iffy. 'Cause like you said, 0-3 start. It's going to be real tough to come roaring back from that to make the playoffs. But I definitely think, this offseason that they need to go out and get a quarterback. Because like you said, with all the injuries Ben's had, he's aging faster and faster because with every year, those injuries just nag on him more and more. So I definitely think they need to go into this offseason with a plan to, kind of revamp this team. Like you said, they've got the oldest defensive unit, very young offensive line, inexperienced offensive line. I think once those guys get some experience, they get a quarterback in there maybe to learn under Ben for a year or two, while he's kind of finishing out his career or, heads on somewhere else, kind of that Aaron Rodgers thing, have him learn a little bit, then bring him in. I think they might be able to kind of get back to what they've done the past few years, maybe in another year or two, get back to the normal Pittsburgh ways.
Starting off 0-3 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, like Dave said, it's definitely not something that Pittsburgh fans are used to. 6 championships they've won in the past. It's unheard of, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a shock to me, but honestly, I feel as though, they just start really bad. Every game, they start really bad. We come into the year, the very first play of the game, they get a safety. 2 points. They had 2 points until the fourth quarter of that game against the Tennessee Titans. So, and then go back to the Chicago game. They're down 24-10, 24-3. Their starts. They start the game so poorly every game. If you start the game, it's like you're only playing 30 minutes of the game. So that's the only time they play. They really play. It's kind of like the Washington Redskins, for instance. In the very first game against the Eagles, they played 30 minutes in that game in the second half, and they lost. The Pittsburgh Steelers are starting really slow every game, and I feel as that's the reason why they're losing. And speaking of starting 0-3, no team has ever won the Super Bowl starting 0-3. They made the playoffs, but they've never won a Super Bowl. So, Super Bowl hopes are out of the question. So if they want to pack it in and go ahead and just end the season and, go ahead and just work for a good draft pick, I'd say go ahead, because who wants to make the playoffs and not win a Super Bowl? It's pointless. You don't go there just to say we made it. You know what I mean? So, I honestly, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the season's not over. Because I saw life in them. And against the Chicago Bears, they definitely had life. And, I know you guys, are still Steelers fans here, or you are, So, Big Ben's not done. Nowhere near done. He has life. I saw him watching him last night against the Chicago Bears in that second half. He looked like the Ben of old. I feel like the defense needs to pick it up. Troy Polamalu needs to be all over the field. I know he's getting older, but he needs to be all over the field like he used to be. We need better linebackers. I think losing James Harrison was key in the reason why our defense isn't as good, or their defense isn't as good as it used to be. But it's a mixture of many things, and there's a bunch of different components that go into the reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't playing as well. But my main thing for them is definitely their slow starts. Going down 24-3 against the Chicago Bears is, there's no way you're going to come back from that. And then they still gave them a run, the great back of the end zone catch from, I believe, number 88. I'm not really sure his name.
It was Antonio Brown.
Number 84, sorry. Antonio Brown, sorry about that. Back of the end zone catch, that was a great catch. It gave the city, I could feel, the Pittsburgh fans really going crazy like they used to. They gave them life. And I don't think they're done. They won't win a Super Bowl, though. It's over for that.
A couple things. You mentioned they scored points in their first 2 games. They scored 19 in their first combined 2 games. 3 more than the Browns, if I might add. But they only allowed 20 against the Bengals. So they only scored 10 against the Bengals. But the defense kind of held them in. Once you get like 20 and then over that, that's a little too much. If you keep them at 20 and under like they did the first 2 games, I think that's enough to win. Mm-hmm. Also, with going into the season, I don't think the Steelers had any thoughts of Super Bowl contention. If they did, then they must have been out of their mind, because you got to think you want to win every game, but you got to be realistic with your goals. You think the Jaguars went into this year thinking we're going to the Super Bowl? They are still in the rebuilding process. The Steelers are now in a rebuilding process. With James Harrison, I don't think it was that much of a loss. Compared to his 2008 defensive MVP season, he has been garbage since then. he has not been the animal that he was in 2008. He didn't have the motivation, or maybe not the motivation. He didn't seem like he had the drive to get through there on every play and just be vicious like he was. And even in Cincinnati, he's still not putting up the numbers. So I don't even think that was that much of a loss. We have Lamar Woodley and we have Stevenson Sylvester to back them up. And Lawrence Timmons, he needs to be the Lawrence Timmons of last year. The Steelers MVP, he was the defense of last year. He was the playmaker. But honestly, this season is basically in the dumps, especially if they lose the next game to the Vikings. Some sign of life, maybe they just need to get a win in another country to get their season started. So that's why I think it's just panic mode time for the Steelers. Maybe just throw in the towel for this season and rebuild for the next year, because they can do a rebuilding session and be ready for next year.
I definitely agree with Dave. I really don't think getting rid of James Harrison is that big of a deal. They got Jarvis Jones, who's been playing pretty well. So, I mean, I don't really think that's a big factor. Just like I said, defense needs to improve. Offense does need to improve a little bit too, but I definitely think it's on the defense right now. But, you'll have to see what they do the next coming weeks. Like you said, game against the Vikings in London this upcoming Sunday. Maybe get their first win, maybe turn it around a little bit. So we'll have to see.
Hey, matchup with two 0-3 teams this week. This week coming up in London, Minnesota Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Someone has to win, unless they tie. If they tie, hey, pack it in. If they win, Pittsburgh Steelers win, I say the season's not over just yet. So, they got to stay focused, and I think it could be good for them. But going back to your point about the linebacker that they lost, James Harrison. I think just having him there, just having him there on the side, on the field with them, like that poses a threat to opposing quarterbacks and opposing offenses. Now he's on the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals didn't think he was garbage. They went and got him. You know what I mean? So he couldn't have been, too bad that now the Cincinnati Bengals defense is playing really well.
We also thought Mike Wallace was garbage. Now he's in Miami.
And
it's
doing
the Steelers'
well.
standard of what they think the players are going to do. And
doing well. But see, the thing about it is it's a good thing. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will do well this year. If they can get a win. If they lose this time against the Minnesota Vikings, pack it in.
Not worth 5 years, $65 million.
No.
Yeah, about your comment about tying in London, I think they're a little used to that in soccer, but stranger things have happened, obviously. But moving on to our next topic, this past week, 49ers defensive end Aldon Smith was arrested on suspicion of DUI and possession of a controlled substance. Smith played against the Colts yesterday, but after the game was granted temporary leave to check himself into a rehab facility for his substance abuse problem. What do you guys make of this situation? Cameron?
It's obviously a rough situation. You never want to hear about these professional athletes who are getting in trouble with alcohol, drugs, stuff like that. But I definitely think it's a good thing that he's going to get himself help. He's going to try and right the ship. And there was comments as to him playing on Sunday. Why did he play? And the 49ers came out and said we didn't want him to be I feel isolated. With all these things weighing down on him, they wanted him to have guys there, and then he could go off and get help afterwards. So it's terrible news. You never want to hear about these things in professional sports, but I think it's good that he's going to get help.
Yeah, I think maybe this was a catalyst in their problems on the defense, giving up 56 points in the past 2 games, and the offense not even playing up to standards as well, scoring 10 points in their past 2 games. You got to think maybe something like this affected the defense as a whole in the locker room somehow. Like other players knew about it, tried to avoid it, and now he gets caught with a DUI, and then they think maybe this is too much. But it's good that he's trying to go get help. There's a lot of these players that go below the line. They just try to hide it, and then after they retired, and 2 years later broke just because they had to get their fix all the time. They always had to go out and have that drink. So it's great for Aldon Smith to go get help. But, yeah, like I said, maybe that was just a catalyst to why their defense has been lacking, because he put up amazing numbers last year with 20.5 sacks. One shot of Michael Strahan's record as a second-year or rookie player. So I'm looking forward to him getting healthier mentally and maybe even physically, too, and seeing him come back in the Niners uniform.
2 words. Super Bowl hangover. The 49ers this year, they started off 1-2, it's a Super Bowl hangover, That's all it is. That's the only thing you can call it. I think Alden Smith, focusing on him, it's a rough thing. It's rough. But I look forward to him coming back strong and playing well and being the Alden Smith that we're used to seeing. But it's just the start of the end for the 49ers right now. This situation, it's not good for the 49ers, but I think that, like I said, the Super Bowl hangover. So, they're starting off 1-2. They're probably not going to end the season too well either, or make the playoffs. So if they do, it'll shock me. It'll definitely shock me because while they do have the talent to do it, I just don't think their mind's in the right place. And having this happen to Alden Smith, it's going to mess up their defense. It's not going to. Their linebacking core isn't going to be as great, or defensive line core isn't going to be as great either. So, he's hurting the team. He's definitely hurt the team by doing this. But his own personal selfishness, selfish ways, is what's hurting the team. So, I think that hopefully he'll come back stronger and better than ever for the 49ers' sake and his own sake.
I kind of agree with what Dave said. The stuff he been involved in, it could definitely maybe have been a big factor, with chemistry, with the defense in the locker room, stuff like that can definitely be a cancerous thing, and really affect everyone around you, especially because, a lot of times football teams are like families, and, when you're involved in something that, that is, such a terrible thing like that, that's going to weigh on their minds as well. So, like Dave said, that could have been a big factor, kind of hurting the chemistry of the defense there. And like I said, I'm glad he went. He was granted leave to go and get help. They tried to make sure it was understood that it was not a suspension. They granted him leave to check into a rehab facility, and hopefully he gets his body right, gets his mind right, and like they said, he can come back strong, healthy, and not fall into this pit that we've seen a lot of professional athletes fall into, and so hopefully he can, stay clean and stay right for, the remainder of his career, which, looks to be a long and prolific career, if he can stay mentally and physically healthy.
Isn't Super Bowl 2 words? And isn't hangover 2 words? So wasn't that 4 words you just said earlier? I think that's how the grammar works.
Oh, is this grammar showdown?
Yeah,
now,
I
Dave?
guess it is. But if you win the Super Bowl, usually isn't that when you get the Super Bowl hangover? But when you lose, you want to go back to a rebuilding process once again. You got to think, they still have the talent. They made the trade for Anquan Boldin for a 6th-round draft pick, which was a steal from one brother from another brother. And Anquan Boldin showed up the first game. And then after that, I don't know what happened to this offense. I think maybe people are finally figuring out how to stop Colin Kaepernick in a read option. That could be it. The defense isn't helping them as well. So I think really, because the San Francisco defense has been top-notch since about 2 years ago, since they've been making the NFC Championships, making the Super Bowl. Without this defense, this offense isn't really showing up either. So I think maybe this was the problem that this defense was having. If he comes back healthy, watch out for the team, because this team, I still think, has playoff hope. You got the Cardinals and the Rams in your division. They play the Rams this Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. If not, they do play them this week.
Yeah, they do.
So you get a win there, you're back to 2-2. You can probably get 4 wins right there. And, Seattle at San Fran, got to give them a chance there, too. They got blown out in Seattle, but San Fran won the battle at San Fran last year. So this team is still in it. I think this might be key to the San Francisco 49ers' success if he gets healthy.
Okay. Hangover is 1 word. So
it autocorrects
and then,
2 words.
And then Super Bowl, a lot of times in the NFL they can join that word to become 1. So therefore, like I said, 2 words. Super Bowl hangover. If not 2, 3 words. Super Bowl hangover. So, like I said, either way, it's Super Bowl hangover, and you can still, by getting to Super Bowl, it becomes a Super Bowl hangover as well. Not just if you win it, So just getting there, you can get a hangover from it. But nonetheless, the 49ers, they may not be done this entire year. They may not have a horrible season, but I feel as though, with the loss of Alden Smith, and who, by the way, I am very happy, he's going into the intensive care and getting help, drug rehab and all that stuff. I'm very, happy he's doing that. But he will be suspended. There's no doubt about it. He's going to get some type of suspension. Right now, they give him a leave, but he will be suspended. Roger Goodell doesn't let anything get past him here, so or any type of situations like that. So he'll get some type of suspension. But I'm happy he's doing that though, for his own sake.
I really don't think he's going to get suspended.
No.
Wasn't Heinz Ward pulled over for a DUI?
Yeah, didn't Josh Brent kill someone?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't see a suspension coming down, but we'll have to wait and see for that.
We'll wait and see.
Yeah, getting a little nasty on Sports Showdown today. I do believe that Super Bowl hangover would be 3 words.
3 words.
The movie The Hangover, it's 2 words.
It's agree to
The
disagree.
Hangover.
3
Agree
words.
to disagree is 3 words. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, that's fine.
Compromise.
All right, everybody. It's close race at this point. We'll have your current point standings after the break, so stick with us, and we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Hi, my name is Erica, and I work here as a team member at Rock and Yogurt, and I'm also a student at Slippery Rock. We were established in May of 2013. We offer different flavors of yogurt. We are located on Main Street of Slippery Rock and are right across the street from North Country Brewery. We have traditional flavors like vanilla and chocolate, and we also offer unique flavors like cinnamon, maple bacon donut, pumpkin, and blueberry.
I'm Dr. David Valentine in computer science.
I'm Nick Jones, public health major.
I'm Dr. John Buttermore, School of Business.
Sue Zerpley in the chemistry department.
Kurt Schimmel, the Dean of the College of Business, Information, and Social Sciences.
My name's Alyssa Posman, and I'm an early childhood major.
Marilyn, and I work in the communication department.
I'm Ian Maynard. I'm a computer science major.
Welcome back to the second half of the latest edition of Rock Sports Showdown. Our current point standings sit at Cameron with 17, and Big Dave and Kenny tied at 19. So it's a very close race. We've got 3 more topics to cover, so let's start this. This past week, BYU senior linebacker Spencer Hadley was suspended 5 games for violating the school's honor code. A picture was taken at a party, which shows Hadley and others holding bottles of champagne. This picture was forwarded to BYU's Director of Compliance from the University of Utah's Assistant Athletic Director, who received a photo from a Utah football fan. This incident and suspension came down just a couple days before this past Saturday, when BYU played none other than the University of Utah. Utah won the game 20-13. What do you guys make of this situation? Kenny?
Well, BYU is a Mormon school, and in the past there was a situation when the basketball team where Davies, a teammate of Jimmer Fredette, was suspended for having affairs with his girlfriend. So it doesn't surprise me. It surprises me that Utah, one of Utah's players or someone from the Utah side has sent the picture in. But other than that, I mean, it doesn't surprise me because of past situations that have happened at BYU.
This is just an odd story. We heard all the details from what Ryan just said right there. Just really think about a student of University of Utah sitting there and finding this and thinking, whoa, what can I do with this? So they actually go out of their way to actually make a team, like suspend a player, and then what do you know? They play each other, and then it happens that maybe that player could have been the X factor in that game for BYU winning a game. This is the most odd story that I've heard about college football, except for maybe the Manti Te'o story. But overall, this just amazes me. How is this more of like a pride thing for a school of Utah? Try to say, hey, I want my team to win all the time, doesn't matter how, or is this kind of like a shot in the dark, like a stab in the back, on another program, just trying to just take someone down?
I mean, I think it's just low, I just think it's a really underhanded thing for, for them to do. I mean, this fan sent the picture to the assistant athletic director of Utah. She didn't have to send it to BYU's compliance director. Because, I mean, my whole thing is when you have athletes, who get recruited, they're going to go to the school where they think they have the best opportunity. Not necessarily, I don't think that Spencer Hadley chose to go to BYU because it's a Mormon school. So these students, these players do these things. Like, he's legal. It's not like he was underage drinking. He's of legal age, but because of the fact that he plays football for a Mormon school, he's going to get punished for that. If he was playing in Alabama, you wouldn't be hearing about this. So I mean, that's kind of, it's just such a underhanded way to, especially where, like you said, they were playing them that week. And I guarantee that's the entire reason they did that. It wasn't, well, lucky us, we play them this weekend. So, it just kind of coincidentally happened to occur in the same. No, he got this picture from somebody. Obviously, like you said, the schools are in the same state. I'm sure he probably knew someone that was either at that party or something. So, got the picture, decided, this could probably get that guy suspended. We play them this weekend. Here you go. And like you saw, they won 20-13, 1-touchdown game. Spencer Hadley could have played a big factor in that game.
Well, very bizarre situation. But like I said, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. But being that it is a Mormon school, it kind of goes to show you that someone's always watching. Not just in that situation, but in any situation, someone's always watching you, and could possibly do something to prohibit or stop you from doing something to be successful. So, Hadley, I feel bad for him, for a guy like that, who's of age to get caught and mixed up in something like that. It's bizarre, but it doesn't surprise me that BYU suspended him.
People can't be trusted anymore these days. It's the bottom line.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, I just think it's a really low, underhanded thing for this, the fan and the assistant athletic director of Utah to do. And like I said, I mean, it's just the fact that just because, BYU is a Mormon school, like Kenny said, the incident a few years ago with basketball, the player had premarital sex with his girlfriend, and so they suspended him from the basketball tournament. It just baffles me, Mormon philosophy, okay, you can marry multiple different women, but college student has premarital sex with his girlfriend and they suspend him for the entire basketball tournament. Yeah. I mean, it just kind of seems like a conflict of morals there. But that's BYU for you.
I mean, you got to kind of know what you're signing up for when you sign
I guess
there,
so.
I guess, so. All right, next topic. This past Saturday, for the first time, Alabama did not look like the most dominant team in college football. Alabama beat Colorado State, but only by a score of 31-6. With teams like Ohio State, Louisville, and Baylor and Oregon putting up over 70 points on Saturday, do you guys still feel like Alabama is the team to beat right now, Dave?
Absolutely. How many points did Alabama give up? 7. That's the only thing that you have to do is just outscore the other team.
How many points did Ohio State give up?
It doesn't matter.
Goose egg.
It doesn't. All right. Yeah, so that's good. But when they go up against Alabama, are they going to give up goose egg against them as well? No, it's not. Alabama is still the best team because they have given up the least amount of points, the least amount of yards. They know how to control the other team, and then their offense just takes care of the rest because the defense is paving out the path for them. Until you have an Ohio State, an Oregon, a Baylor, I don't even think a Baylor has a chance against Alabama or Louisville. Louisville, Oregon, Ohio State, all have good chances against Alabama. But then we saw last year with Notre Dame going into the championship game, that Notre Dame offense that was kind of shaky, like Everett Golson could put up this many yards on rush. It was kind of they didn't run a read option kind of offense, but he was a mobile quarterback. And so bottom line is Alabama is giving up the least amount of points, and all you need is just to outscore the other opponent. And whenever they can only get 2 touchdowns and only giving up 1, they are still the best team in college football. It's all about the defense in Alabama, and that's why they're the best.
No doubt about it. Alabama is the best team in the land. I think Oregon can definitely give them a run for their money, but I think their offense does play a key portion, in their attack, because without their offense, they would definitely lose. If you go back to last week, or against Texas A&M, without their offense scoring 49 points, they lose that game. You know what I mean? Without their offense playing as well as they did, they lose that game because they could not stop Texas A&M from scoring. They did through stretches of the game, but they just couldn't stop Johnny Football. But
they did.
They did, but to a certain degree. They did not stop him.
They stopped him
enough,
but they didn't stop him.
They stopped him enough. Exactly. Without their defense, without their offense, they would not have won that game. So, them putting up 31 points and only allowing 6 points in this past game was definitely enough. They scored enough points to win the game. So you have to do outscore the other team. For Ohio State to score 76 points and only give up no points, hey, that's good. But they could have scored 1 point, 2 points. They still would have won. So it's all about winning the game.
I don't think Alabama's team to beat anymore. I think their days as the number one are numbered. I think within a couple of weeks they're not going to be the number one anymore. Once they start playing these tough SEC teams, they're not going to be up there anymore. Like you said, they played A&M and they gave up points in the 40s, or was it in the 50s?
49 to 42.
Yeah. So 42 points to Texas A&M, and Texas A&M is not nearly the kind of offense that Oregon, Ohio State, Louisville have. They have complete offenses. A&M has Manziel. That's it. That's all they have.
Evans.
But they don't have a multifaceted offense. They really, it's so pass heavy. It's just not as high powered. Like we've seen Oregon, Ohio State, Louisville, put up points in the 70s and also have good defenses. It's not like a team where you have a really good offense and a really terrible defense, kind of like we saw with the Alabama A&M game, where it was just a really high scoring game. Neither team could stop each other. Teams like Oregon, teams like Ohio State, they're going to stop Alabama. They might, Alabama might still score, 20-some, 30-some points, but we saw how much A&M was able to score in Alabama, and I think Ohio State and Oregon are going to be able to score even more. So I don't see, if they keep putting up these performances, I think in the next couple of weeks someone is going to overtake them as the number one. And, Alabama may still make it to the championship game, but I just don't think they are that powerhouse anymore.
In week 1, Ohio State beat Buffalo 40-20, but we weren't criticizing them so much. But the minute that Alabama, the number one team, gives up 6 points, only gets 31, now we're criticizing them about, are they still the best team? Ohio State probably has the best chance to beat them, Alabama. I think they can shut down Oregon. Well, maybe not shut down. They can beat Oregon. They can beat Louisville. But Ohio State is the toughest team. Should be the number 2 team in my mind over Oregon. But for now, Alabama, I don't think they're numbered. They are in control of their own destiny. They have, like I said, the best defense. And when you have the best defense, I think, is always better than the best offense. As we saw, the best offense, Slippery Rock, went to Gannon, then they got shut down, and their defense was still the same. So I've always seen matchups with Alabama thinking, this is probably the week when they're going to lose. They shut them down to 10 points. They score 44 of their own. So Alabama is a different style of a complete football team than they are with Ohio State and Oregon and Louisville. They are more complete as a whole than they are on one side of the ball. So that's why A.J. McCarron has as many losses as he does championships. So Alabama is still the best team and still the team to beat. And we're going to say this until they are beat.
They can't lose the number one position until they lose. They're not gonna lose. They can get enough points. Some team could possibly get enough points in the coaches poll to possibly overtake them, but there's no way that's gonna happen. Come on, they're coming off of winning a championship. They haven't lost. They're doing everything back-to-back championships. They're going on winning 3. I believe there's only one team that has ever done that in the past, and it dates back to the 1960s. So it goes a long way back. So looking at Alabama, you say the offenses can outscore them. Alabama defense offsets. It offsets, how many points Ohio State can score or how many points that Oregon can score. Their defense is going to shut them down. You know what I mean? I don't think that you're not going to shut them down to 0. Of course not. But A.J. McCarron is going to lead his team to points as well. So it's not like he's going to just score 10 points in a game and expect his defense to carry him. No. Their offense is going to score, and their defense is going to offset. Yeah, they couldn't stop, like I said, Texas A&M, per se, but they stopped them enough to win the game. And every game, if they stop every team enough to win a game, they're looking at 3 straight championships.
See, I don't think Alabama's defense is as high and mighty as you guys think they are. Like you just said, You know, they weren't able to stop. They were able to stop A&M enough, but that's because A&M doesn't have a very good defense. So they gave up 49 points to Alabama. That's what I'm saying. When they play someone like Ohio State or Oregon, who has a good defense to go along with a good offense, Alabama's not going to put up that many points. And I think they have better offenses than A&M does. So I think they're going to be able to score 40-some, 50-some points in Alabama, and Alabama's not going to be able to keep up with them.
Yeah, I just wonder how many high-power teams the other teams are going to play at Oregon, Ohio State. Because Big Ten's not as good as it used to be, but it looks like
which is true. That's why I would expect Oregon to maybe overtake them in the polls rather than Ohio State
looks like the Pac-12 is a little better than the Big Ten this year, I'd say. But
usually considered that way.
All right, moving on to our last topic. With only 1 week left in the MLB season, the Red Sox, Dodgers, Braves, and Athletics have all clinched their division titles, and the Cardinals have clinched a playoff berth. What player or players do you feel will have the biggest impact in the 2013 MLB playoffs? Cameron?
For me, I think it's going to be the Red Sox rotation. You know, we've seen all season, you know, their offense is very high-powered offense. You know, they're ranked number 1 in, I believe, like batting average, runs scored, slugging percentage. They're ranked number 2 in like RBIs. You know, just they have this great offense, but it's gonna be on their pitching rotation. And when you look at it, you know, Pujols coming back off an injury and still being as dominant as he was before he got injured. You've got Lester, you've got Peavy, and you've got Dempster. You've got four guys who at some point in time have been or could be aces on anybody's staff who you can pick and choose from to pitch in these series. You can toss one in the bullpen if you want, which they even have a great bullpen. They don't really even need the help in the bullpen. You know, so I really think this Boston Red Sox pitching rotation is going to carry them through the playoffs and is what makes them a big favorite for the World Series.
I look at the Dodgers rotation with Kershaw, with Greinke, and since the loss of Billingsley, it suffered at first, but then I think it's just the resurgence of Yasiel Puig that made him like spark, because their offense was pretty shady as well. So, and the bullpen for the Dodgers as well, it's going to be key. It's just pitching overall, I guess, for the Dodgers is what I'm trying to get at. Their batting is good enough as it is. Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp, Andre Ethier, Hanley Ramirez, all the big bats on that roster. Adrian Gonzalez, they know how to hit the ball just like the Red Sox. But I think the Dodgers pitching is a little more, it's not as stable as the Red Sox is. The Red Sox are the most complete team in baseball this year, hands down. So that's why I think the Dodgers, if their pitching doesn't show up, watch out, because they might be playing the number 1 seed with the St. Louis Cardinals, because I think the 2 wild card teams are going to come from the Central if the Cardinals do win the division. And the Cardinals have one of the best offenses every year, with Alan Craig having the best running average with runners in scoring position in a span of 2 years, better than Paul Molitor, Ichiro Suzuki, and Hank Aaron in a span of 2 years. So I think the Dodgers are going to go up against the Cardinals. It's going to be up to the Dodgers pitching to advance to the NLCS, to the World Series, to possibly winning it.
I agree that the Boston Red Sox are hands down the best team, pitching and the most complete team. But I will say that, it's no surprise, pitching is definitely key in, winning a World Series. But as far as, players or a player that, I feel will do well in the playoffs this year, I got to go with the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves batting, they have a lot of big bats and a lot of players that can hit home runs and that can, score points. Ultimately, the point of the game is to score points. The more points you score, another team doesn't, you win. So I'm going to have to go with the Atlanta Braves batting crew, because they have a lot of big bats that can hit a lot of home runs, as they have done this year.
And kind of just jumping over to the NL side of things, we're going to see the Pirates make the playoffs for the first time in 20 years.
Not there yet.
2 more games, and they've got it. But, I think a big factor, if the Pirates are going to have a run through the playoffs, is going to be their power bats. I think guys like Alvarez, Garrett Jones, Justin Morneau, those types of guys, they've got to limit the strikeouts, and, they've got to be power producers here in the playoffs. Now's the time to be those run producers. You've got guys like McCutchen, Starling Marte, Jordy Mercer. You've got guys who've got Jose Tabata, Marlon Byrd, whoever. You guys who've got speed, who can run the base paths, and then you need your power guys, bringing in the runs. They can't struggle having high strikeout totals. They've got to be run producers.
And on the AL side with the Tigers, it's going to be Miguel Cabrera staying healthy. The best player in baseball, 350 average, 136 RBIs, 44 home runs. If he doesn't stay healthy, his lineup is pretty stacked, but without the best player in baseball, it's going to maybe take them out in the first round.
In the AL, I'm going to have to go with the Boston Red Sox. I feel like they have, like Dave said, the most complete team, pitching, hitting. They can do it all. And I believe that, that they're going to go up against maybe the Tigers or some team like that in the ALCS. But, the NL, in the NL, I have to go with the Atlanta Braves. Like I said, they're big bats and power hitting. I think that they're going to go far this year as well.
All right, well, that's all we have for your topics. So here's the final standings. Looks like in third place we have Cameron with 31. In second place we have Kenny with 33, which means today's winner is Dave with 34 points. You only won by 1. So you get your 30 seconds of FaceTime.
Hey, and it's just like Alabama. As long as you get more than the others, you win. So I'm going to have to do the FaceTime to the Pittsburgh Pirates. You're 2 games away from clinching a playoff berth for the first time since I was 2 months old, before Bryce Harper was born. You guys have a chance to make some history. If this team makes it to the World Series by some magical power of God, I think this team will win it, because with a 14-4 record in interleague play this year, their best record in years, this team can possibly win it up. So Pittsburgh Pirates, they have 6 more games on the road, all of them against division opponents, 3 of them against possibly getting a home wild card spot or a division. So look out for the Pittsburgh Pirates this year, possibly in the playoffs in 2013.
All right, well, that's our show. Once again, for Cameron Collins, Kenny Moore, and Big Dave Miller, I'm your host, Ryan Noblet, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Rock Sports Showdown.